In this video, I'm going to use the Pro Football Network mock draft simulator to do a 2-round mock draft. It's not going to be a simulation. I'm going to be picking for every single team. And a word of caution for people who are not regular visitors to SeahawksDraftBlog.com. This is not going to be a mock draft like the ones you see on the internet. It's going to be very different. If you wonder why I make some of these picks, go to the blog, go through the archives, read what I've written about each of these players and the fits with different teams to understand why I'm making these picks. Because like I say, you're going to see things that you disagree with. You're going to see teams passing on certain players, picking certain players earlier. But I've written in great depth about a lot of the decisions I'm going to make here, and you know those who are regular visitors to the blog will have a better idea of why I'm doing what I'm doing. So let's get on with it then. First pick is pretty obvious. Joe Burrow had a great season for LSU. He's going to be the guy at number 1 for Cincinnati. Now, Miami, and there's been a lot of speculation in the media and just little hints and rumours about the Dolphins being willing to spend 3 picks. They've got 3 first-round picks this year, a couple next year as well. 3 first-round picks to move up to number 1 to get Joe Burrow, and that is clearly because they've not been able to test Tua Tagovailoa and have a look at his injury and feel confident about him. You saw Adam Schefter reporting this week, suggesting that maybe the Dolphins are not as high on Tua as maybe a lot of people think, and this is purely down to the medical side of things. If you take Tua at number 5, you have to guarantee him $30 million, and with a top 5 pick, you are saying you are the future of the franchise. And the Dolphins don't know how he's going to play with his hip injury. He may be completely different post-injury than he was when he was healthier playing for Alabama. They don't know if he's even going to take the field again, and they don't know what his long-term prospects are because they've not been able to get their doctors to view him. Now, that is a big call to make, a $30 million investment in a guy like that at number 5 when you are a team that has been desperate for a quarterback. They don't want to be in 2 years' time needing to go through this process again, trying to find a quarterback very early in the first round. So they've got to be absolutely sure, which is why they want to probably move up to number 1 and go and get Joe Burrow. But the thing is, the Bengals, I reckon if you chucked in all 5 of the first-round picks that Miami have got this year and next, I still don't think Cincinnati would take that offer. I think they've decided if there are teams willing to move up to number 1, spending all those picks to get Joe Burrow, then they're better off just taking Joe Burrow and trying to have him as a franchise savior. And the way that they've spent money in free agency, I think it indicates that they're trying to build around Joe Burrow and convince him, yes, this is the place to be, rather than thinking they're going to move this pick, go down to number 5 and be faced with the exact same dilemma that Miami has got. So as much as the Dolphins might want to move up to number 1, I don't think the Bengals are going to shift from that, and they're going to pick Joe Burrow there. Number 2, Chase Young, pretty obvious one here. He is seemingly destined to go to the Redskins. They are trying, by the looks of things, to mimic the 49ers, who a year ago took an Ohio State pass rusher at number 2 overall in Nick Bosa, loaded up their defensive line with first-round talent, and then managed to go from picking number 2 overall to the Super Bowl. I don't think the Redskins are going to go from number 2 overall to the Super Bowl. I don't think anybody does, but they can certainly improve quite quickly with the new coaching staff, Ron Rivera, and if they can get a really good defensive line rotation going. So they would have Chase Young round 1, Montez Sweat round 1, Ryan Kerrigan round 1, and then they've got the 2 interior guys from Alabama as well. So a loaded defensive line, and that is a good platform for Ron Rivera to build around. Number 3 is the Lions. They've moved Darius Slay. They have a hole at cornerback, and Jeffrey Okudah maybe didn't have the combine, quite as good a combine as people were thinking. Still an incredibly talented and determined character, and will be a great fit for the Lions there at number 3. Now, number 4, I'm going to have the New York Giants taking Derrick Brown. A lot of people have got this penned as a left tackle. I actually think that it could be a receiver as well. I think that basically making sure that Daniel Jones has got a weapon is going to be a priority for the Giants in this draft, and we'll come back to that later. But I think Dave Gettleman's going to be Dave Gettleman, and one thing he's going to do is he's going to try and get the best player on the board at that point, and he loves to rack up these defensive linemen, these big defensive linemen, and have them as the focal point of his team. In Carolina, if you remember, they had Kawan Short, they had Starlo Tulele, and he still went and drafted Vernon Butler in the first round. Yeah, that was a later first round pick, not a top 5 pick, but Brown is such a good player. People seem to be downing him a little bit because he just didn't have this amazing combine. what I'd say is go and watch the video. He dominated for Auburn for the last 2 years, particularly in 2019. He was disruptive. He was unstoppable at times. And you watch teams play Auburn. I even watch LSU play Auburn to watch the offensive line and to watch Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And you just couldn't take your eyes off Derek Brown. The amount of impact games that he had in 2019 was huge. And I can definitely see him still going in the top 5. And I can see the Giants saying, you know what? Leonard Williams is on a 1-year franchise tag right now. It's going to be very expensive to keep him on another tag in a year's time. Bring Derek Brown in. They've got some options there moving forward. So number 5, and this is for me the point where the Miami Dolphins fans start sending me nasty messages on YouTube and on the blog and everything. I am not going to have them take Tua, as I mentioned earlier, because of the risk factor there. I'm going to have them take Andrew Thomas and just let the quarterback situation play out a little bit here. It may be that they just take Jordan Love or Justin Herbert instead and just nail this position down. Or they might just let the draft come to them a little bit, or they may even just go out and sign Cam Newton or something like that and push this problem down the line, because there is too much if they could test Tua and if they could feel comfortable with the medicals with Tua, and look, it doesn't matter how many times Ian Rappaport tweets about this via the agents or the representatives of Tua Tagovailoa. You need to have your own doctors have a look at this guy and then make an assessment in that regard, not doctors employed by the player or the agents or whatever to do this and say that everything is fine. So, I think Andrew Thomas has been a top 5 pick throughout this process. I know a lot of the national media guys are lower on him than perhaps I am. I think he's the top left tackle in this class. I think he's a perfect fit here to come and fill a position of need for the Dolphins for a number of years, and a good start to the draft for them with further picks and more talent to add later on. I'm going to stick with defensive lineman at number 6 for the Chargers, Mekhi Becton at number 6. The reason for this GM, the Chargers took DJ Fluker with the number 11 pick not so long ago. He likes big, hulking offensive linemen. I think they'll plug in Mekhi Becton. They're probably at left tackle initially. Whether he sticks there or not sure. But they seem to be wanting to build up their offensive line. I think they'll come back to the quarterback position later. That means that at number 7 for Carolina, perfect for them that they can go and get Isaiah Simmons at number 7. They can plug him in at linebacker. And I think they will focus on size and speed with these first 2 picks again, and we'll come back to that in round 2 in a little while. Number 8 with Arizona, they've re-signed their left tackle. I think you go and get Tristan Wirfs here and play him at guard or right tackle. I think those are his 2 best spots. He played right tackle at Iowa. I think he's got a perfect frame to be an all-pro guard kicking inside. I think you've just got to build up as many options as you can in front of Kyler Murray. They've brought in a receiver now in DeAndre Hopkins. You get Tristan Wirfs at number 8 here. You feel pretty good about that. Number 9, the Jaguars would have some options. They've got the quarterbacks still on the board, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert and Jordan Love are all there if they wanted to go in that direction. But I think defense makes more sense at number 9. And here you've got Javon Kinlaw still on the board, and you've got CJ Henderson. Now, Albert Breer wrote a little bit about a few players who've got some injury question marks at the moment, and one of them was Javon Kinlaw, and because teams can't test these guys, I just wonder if he may last a little bit longer than originally thought, and for that reason, I'm going to go with CJ Henderson, who doesn't have any issues at the moment, and I think he look top 10 pick because of his speed, his coverage ability. He could do a little bit better job tracking the ball, forcing turnovers, didn't have too many at Florida, but in terms of coverage ability, he'd be a great fit at number 9. They need to replace Jalen Ramsey. They also need to replace Calais Campbell, and that's why Kinlaw and Henderson make a lot of sense at number 9. At number 10, I'm going to have the first trade. So Cleveland are looking at this board, and they're probably thinking, could go offensive line, could go left tackle here. Personally, for me, I know a lot of people think Jedrick Wills is a great left tackle or right tackle. I think he's a guard. I think he's a pure guard. I think the best left tackles left on the board at this point are Austin Jackson and Ezra Cleveland. Those players will be available a little bit later on. And the one thing, I'm going to have the Browns trading down here a few picks, and I want to come back to them in a little while, because I think you're going to find the pick that I've got for them a little bit interesting. But the team I've got moving up is Denver at 15, and the reason for that is because in front of Denver you've got number 14, Tampa Bay, 13, San Francisco, 12, Las Vegas, and 11, the New York Jets. All of those teams could be targeting a receiver, and I think that's going to be a big priority for Denver, is to get another receiver for Drew Lock, and I think you move up to number 10 and you get the best receiver on your board anyway, the guy that you want, and I think that's worth a little move up here for Denver. So we'll do the first trade. It does not automatically do whatever trade. Even though I've got control of all the teams, you still need to put together what the simulator believes is a realistic deal to move down. So we'll give Cleveland Denver's 3rd round pick and a later round pick to move up to 5 spots. It accepts the deal. Denver move up to number 10. They have their pick of the receivers. I'm going to give them Henry Ruggs. He's going to be a player that you have to game plan for every single week. He's going to be very difficult to cover downfield. There's some special teams value as well. I think he's a perfect fit for Drew Lock with his arm strength to get downfield and make some plays. Nice compliment for Cortland Sutton as well, who's more of a bigger possession receiver. So I can see the Denver Broncos moving up a few spots there to target someone like Henry Ruggs. With the Jets, what have they been doing this offseason so far? They've been signing explosive athletic offensive linemen. George Fant, great TEF tester. Connor McGovern, the centre, a great TEF tester. Jedrick Wills, if he'd have done the bench press, would have been a great TEF tester. Plug him inside, in between those two guys, Fant and Connor McGovern. Get a guard who's going to be a fantastic player. As a guard, he's going to be a top player for years and years and years. I think that'd be a great pick for the Jets there, number 11. Really building around Sam Darnold and that offensive line there. Number 12, Mike Mayock at the Combine for the Raiders said they're going to be targeting weapons. I think Jerry Jeudy, with his personality and his consistency, is the kind of thing that Mike Mayock is going to really appreciate and value there at number 12. That means that at number 13, the Niners get CeeDee Lamb. I think that Kyle Shanahan made this trade with DeForest Buckner, knowing full well that 13 would be a really good spot for them to get a receiver. They've not re-signed Emmanuel Sanders, didn't really seem to be making much of an effort there. Probably because they knew they were going to get a receiver at number 13. And whether it's Ruggs, whether it's Jeudy, or whether it's Lamb, they've got an opportunity to add someone there. And if, let's say all of those guys are gone, let's say that there's a real rush on receivers there, they can still get a really good one at 31 as well. So, Niners, CeeDee Lamb, 13. Now on to the Buccaneers. Now, I think Tampa Bay are going to their main focus in this entire draft is going to be building around Tom Brady. That is going to be their priority. It's going to be to make sure that he has as many weapons and the best protection possible. At 14, though, we've seen the top receivers go off the board. We've seen the top offensive linemen go off the board. I just wonder if they will try and trade down a little bit here. So I've got the Buccaneers moving down. And the team that I'm going to have them trading with is the New England Patriots. Now, these two teams, the GM, Jason Licht, in Tampa Bay, used to work in New England. There's a connection there and a relationship. And I am going to have New England giving up their second round pick next year and a late third in 2019 to move up from 23 up to 14 to get ahead of Jacksonville, Las Vegas, and Miami to get the quarterback they want. So which quarterback is it? I'm going to give them Jordan Love. I think that Bill Belichick will look at him and say he gives them the best chance to get a Patrick Mahomes type player. That he will want the mobile quarterback. He will want somebody who can throw the ball downfield and create. Somebody who's got, did not have a great 2019 season that is well advertised, but has got a massive upside. And you say to Josh McDaniels, go and turn this kid into a star. Now, I think the Patriots will take a shot at quarterback every year until they find a long-term replacement for Tom Brady. I think Jarrett Stidham will get his chance in 2020. And if he wins the job, great. And then, they can easily move him or Jordan Love down the line. If Jordan Love comes in and it isn't working out, they'll just draft somebody else the following year or the year after that, whatever. They're going to keep looking. I don't think they're going to be afraid of making mistakes. I think they're going to keep trying guys until they get the guy that they want who can lead them for the long term. And I think they will give Jordan Love an opportunity. It just seems to me like their inactivity so far, it might just be that they're waiting for the market to come to them. It just seems to me like their inactivity with the position means they're going to do something quite big at the draft. And I think moving up to get Jordan Love here, it's the kind of thing I can see the Patriots doing. So the Browns have moved down from 10 to 15, and I said this was going to be an interesting pick. Now, the Browns are now being run again by the analytics crowd. And a few years ago, when the analytics crowd were running the show, they were very specifically targeting basically players with statistics. It was the guys with a lot of numbers. In terms of analytics, there wasn't like some secret science to any of it. It was kind of who caught a lot of balls, who had a lot of sacks. It was stuff like that. And I think that is going to continue here. And I think also there's going to be a renewed focus on character. Now, they did make some unpredictable moves last time this crowd were in charge of the Browns, and I'm going to have them making a surprise pick here because many people are going to think left tackle. I'm going to come back to that, just put a pin in that for a moment. I could see Antoine Winfield Jr. going earlier than many people think. Now, drafts are not predictable things. Unpredictable things happen. If they worked out the way that Mel Kiper and Todd McShay and all these other big pundits said all the time, then they'd be very easy things to project. They're not. After the first sort of 5 or 6 picks, all kinds of weird stuff happens and unexpected things happen. And for me, Antoine Winfield Jr. ticks a lot of boxes. So he's got the NFL bloodlines because of his dad. He's got mass production in terms of interceptions and the plays that he made at Minnesota. He's got great character. And then at the Combine, he was one of the best testers of the Combine. He looked incredible during drills. He ran in the 4.4s, looked incredible in drills. And I just wonder whether the Browns, or any other team for that matter, will look at him and say, you know, this guy, he's going to be a long-term starter in the NFL who can produce, who can lead, who can provide maturity and production. And I just get a feeling that the Browns, again, because of the production that he's had, may take him in this spot. I think he's much better than people realise. And just keep an eye on him on draft day. So I'm not guaranteeing this is going to happen or anything, but he's a really good player. And like I say, surprising things happen. So the Browns do not go tackle with their first pick. I've got them taking Antoine Winfield Jr. at number 15. On to the Falcons. They need pass rush and they need cornerbacks. Javon Kinlaw still on the board. Good value for the Falcons there. Let's take him at number 16. Dallas at 17. All of a sudden they're in an enviable position in this mock draft because they're in front of the Dolphins and the Raiders and the Jaguars. So any team that is looking to move up for a quarterback with Herbert and Tagovailoa still on the board is going to have to probably deal with the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm going to have the Cowboys trade out. I think the Cowboys at 17 are going to... They've lost their center. Travis Frederick has retired, obviously. It's left them with a huge hole. They have spent a lot of draft picks on their offensive line. They spent a lot of time and effort building that up. And I think they'll want to get an immediate replacement and target Cesar Ruiz. Now, they don't have to take Ruiz here at number 17. They can move back a little bit first. I want to have the Jacksonville Jaguars move up 3 spaces, giving up a 3rd round pick. They've got a lot of picks this year to get ahead of the Raiders and the Dolphins. And the reason is I'm going to have them take a quarterback. Now, you may say, well, they've got Gardner Minshew, they don't need a quarterback. Well, they still need... I mean, this is a team that in its entire history has never had a true franchise quarterback. They've had guys who, you know, David Garrard, for example, Blake Bortles for 1 year, who has been just good enough to not prevent them from getting into the playoffs and having a decent run. But they've never had a guy who is a long-term franchise quarterback. And it could be Gardner Minshew, but it might not be. And let's not forget, at one point last season, they benched Minshew to bring back Nick Foles. So I don't think they're 100% certain that Minshew's the guy. So you bring in Tua Tagovailoa and you start Minshew in 2020. And if Minshew wins the job and it becomes a top quarterback, then you can always trade Tagovailoa, or you can trade Minshew. I mean, you have options there. I mean, you don't have to, it's not a bad thing to have 2 quarterbacks. It's better to have 2 than none. So you keep looking for the answer. And I think actually it would bring the best out of Minshew, having someone like Tagovailoa on the roster, because it spurs him on, it motivates him, plays with a chip on his shoulder a little bit. So I do think it makes sense for the Jaguars to consider taking a quarterback in this draft. They've got to try and find a long-term solution there as they kind of go through this reset period that they're going through currently. And he's not guaranteed $30 million here. At number 5, number 6, you're talking millions and millions and millions. At number 17, it's a lot cheaper. I don't have the numbers down. It's a much cheaper deal for the Jaguars. And if it doesn't work out, who's really going to hammer the Jaguars for this? Who is going to look at the Jaguars and say, you took him at 17 and you failed and you should have paid attention to the medicals. They're taking a shot to nothing at 17. At number 5, you're committing your franchise to the guy. At number 17, it's a totally different prospect. So I have the Jaguars moving up, taking Tua Tagovailoa. Then the Dolphins have got a choice to make. If they actually want to get a quarterback from this draft, then they kind of have to take one here in Justin Herbert, because he may not last whenever they pick next, 26. So I've got them taking Justin Herbert here. I think, if I had to guess how the Dolphins are viewing this, is they probably really like Burrow, really like Tua, but don't trust the medicals, and then probably like Love and Herbert enough to take them, but are willing to let the draft come to them as soon as Burrow's off the board. And that's what I meant with earlier, is I actually think they'll probably say, at 18, we know one of these guys are going to be there. We're happy to take any of them. If it's Tua at 18, we will take him. But we're equally happy to have Jordan Love or Justin Herbert. And I think in that situation, this kind of works for them to have Herbert at 18. Dolphins fans, like I say, are probably going to send me angry messages, because the funny thing about Dolphins fans is like there's a section of them who are so determined that it's Tua or nothing. They've invested in Tua being their quarterback, and then now anything that goes against Tua to Miami at number 5 is unacceptable to them. They will not tolerate that whatsoever. And I find that interesting that they're pinning all of their hopes. And look, if it doesn't, a lot of them are going to be disappointed if it doesn't happen. But it's probably more realistic than they realise. Number 19, Christian Fulton, good fit. Mike Mayock loves defensive backs. I think he will love what he sees from Christian Fulton on tape. Dallas, that I mentioned, they've got a hole at centre now. Take Cesar Ruiz at number 20. 21, Eagles. They need a receiver. Justin Jefferson feels like a good fit. Ran a 4.43. They like guys who run that kind of speed. Very consistent player for LSU last season. But they need some consistency and some speed at receiver. 22, Minnesota. I'm going to have them go offensive line. Isaiah Wilson is a player that I just really believe in. And I know this simulator has him ranked to like 75 or something like that. He's a first-round talent, and he's probably going to go in the first round. He was number 2 in weighted TEF behind only Tristan Wirfs. He's huge, he's explosive, he's excellent. If you watch Georgia on tape, Jake Fromm had a ridiculous amount of time in the pocket. I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback have as much time as Jake Fromm did in 2019, and that's because of Andrew Thomas at the start, and it's because of Isaiah Wilson. He's a quality player, and he thoroughly deserves to go 22 at least to Minnesota. 23, Tampa Bay. As I mentioned, I think offensive line, skill positions is the way to go. You keep adding. You've got Mike Evans, you've got Chris Godwin, you've got tight ends, you've got a few pieces on your offensive line, but you keep adding more and more. You give Tom Brady as many weapons as possible, because you're in a 2-year window now. You have committed to a 2-year championship window with Tom Brady, and you have to give him everything he needs to deliver a title. So, for me, you look at the running backs, you look at the receivers, and you look at the offensive linemen. I'm going to have Jonathan Taylor go here. I think he's the perfect running back in many ways. His lateral ability is not amazing. He does not have the jump cut, for example, that Saquon has. But he has everything else: the 4.3 speed, the ideal size, the ability to break tackles, home run hitting ability. Great personality and character, durability in college. Yes, there was a fumble issue, but there have been many articles written, studies about the fact that doesn't necessarily translate from college to the pros. I don't think you worry about it too much here. I've got Jonathan Taylor going at 23. He's an incredibly talented player. In terms of pure talent, he deserves to go in that kind of range. Now, this for me could kick off a bit of a run at running back. I think this is there's sort of like 5 running backs. Taylor, you've got DeAndre Swift, you've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, J.K. Dobbins, and Cam Akers. All really good. If you want a running back from this draft, make sure you get one of those guys. And, Seahawks Twitter and Seahawks fans, for example, will get very sniffy about the fact if the Seahawks take another running back very early, but there is so much Russell Wilson himself is going to have another 4 to 5 years at his peak. And, you've got to put talent around him while he's in that peak. If you could get a Jonathan Taylor, a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a J.K. Dobbins, a DeAndre Swift, or a Cam Akers for 5 years at a cheap cost to fill out the rest of Russell Wilson's peak, especially given there's an unknown about whether Rashad Penny's ever going to come back to his best. Is he going to be back this year? Chris Carson has been injured throughout his career. He's a free agent in 12 months' time. To me, it would just make a lot of sense to invest in one of these running backs. And if Taylor was there, or if Clyde Edwards-Helaire in particular were there, then I would seriously, this is at 27 even, I would seriously consider that. And if you trade down and they're still there, I think you've really got to consider it. But in this mock draft, neither Taylor or Edwards-Helaire is available because I've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire going at 24 to New Orleans. Now, here's why. What do the Saints do a lot of? They have their running backs catching passes. Now, the offensive coordinator at LSU last season is from the New Orleans, he's from the Sean Payton coaching tree. So they ran the same offense. And Edwards-Helaire was, he had the physical running, energizing runs, tone-setting running back. But he also ran their route tree as a receiver superbly. And he was a perfect fit for that offense because of the way that he could do it. Now, the Saints have got a decision to make on Alvin Kamara, who has been terrific for them. But he was injured last season. He had injuries at Tennessee. He never really latched on at Alabama when he was there as well. And as explosive and as talented as Alvin Kamara has been, do you want to pay him a big contract? Especially at a time when you see so many of these big second contracts looking like, just in unbelievably bad deals with hindsight. With them not producing, your Zeke's not produced, Gurley didn't produce after the big contract, there's probably one or two others as well. Do you want to pay Alvin Kamara, or do you want to get a guy that can work in this offense and can operate in this offense and can do all of the things that you need to do? And even if you did re-sign Alvin Kamara, you could still, you've got two guys then. You've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Kamara for this offense. I just think he's an ideal fit for New Orleans in this spot. And I don't think you risk him going somewhere else if you're the Saints. I just think he's a perfect, ideal match for them. I would love to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire in Seattle. He's one of my favourite players, and I think he's a top 20 player in this draft. I think he's an incredible player. I think Jonathan Taylor's pretty good as well, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire, special talent, and I've got him going at 24 to New Orleans here. 25 with the Vikings. They've traded Stephon Diggs. The value in this spot is at receiver. I've got him taking Jalen Reagor, another incredible talent, great value here. Very explosive, great ability in the red zone to leap above defenders and catch the ball out of the air. The Dolphins at 26, bit of a run on running backs here. They need one. DeAndre Swift, good value, really talented player. A lot of people will have him rated higher than Jonathan Taylor and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think he's behind them as the number 3 running back, but I think he's still a really good player, and I could see him going to the Dolphins at 26. 27 for the Seahawks then. So they're on the board. I'm going to have them trade down in this position here, and I'm going to see if I can do a deal with the Colts to move down to number 34. Because for me, the key for the Seahawks, if it happens. Okay. The key for the Seahawks for me is I don't think the options at 27 in this particular projection here are that different in terms of the players you're going to be looking at than the players at 34. And I think you move down with a player in mind that you can get. That's generally what they've done in previous drafts. I know people will say, well, just take the best player, just take this player, just take that. Often the player that they're going to take in their original pick is the guy they take it anyway after trading down. So you might as well have the extra pick if that's the case. Now, the Seahawks have 27, 59, and 64. Then they have nothing for nearly 40 picks. That's well over a round because they traded their third-round pick to Houston for Jadeveon Clowney. So they could do with adding a pick to fill the gap between 64 and 101. And this trade here with the Colts, where you get a third-round pick in return, is perfect for that. And it really fills that gap in there and fills out your draft board. So who have the Colts moved up for? The quarterbacks have gone, but there's still a lot of receiving talent. They could do with a big outside receiver who's very athletic. That is the kind of player that Phillip Rivers has always done well with. Denzel Mims had a great Senior Bowl, great combine, and he goes at 27. Ravens at 28. Kenneth Murray is a perfect fit for the Ravens here. Great value. His kind of character is just a great match in Baltimore. Titans at 29. They could go in a few different directions here, but they've traded. Oh, sorry, they allowed Jack Conklin to move on. They have a hole at right tackle, and there are tackles left on the board here. I actually think Austin Jackson could go a lot earlier than this, but he is raw. So while he's very talented, huge upside, he's a raw player. He's probably not going to play his best football in year one, but worthy of an investment in this. I think this would be a value pick for the Titans. I mean, he could easily go at number 15 to, well, I've got Antoine Winfield Jr. to Cleveland. He could go in that spot easily. But I've got Austin Jackson there to the Titans, who get a replacement for Jack Conklin late in round one. The Packers need receivers. They've got a couple of options here. KJ Hamler stands out as an option, but I'm going to have them take Brandon Ayuk. I think he's a lot better than he's being rated and graded. I think he's a fit for what Green Bay likes to do, and I could see him going late in the first round. I'm going to have another trade here. Now, the Niners, because of all the moves they've made over the last year and a bit, they were without picks. You can see there before the DeForest Buckner trade, they had 31 and then nothing until 156. They've got to try and fill out their draft board a little bit. So at one point, whether it's 13 or 31, they're going to trade down and they're going to try and get a few more picks on the board. So in this situation, I had earlier the Browns not take an offensive lineman, and instead they took Antoine Winfield Jr. And, like I said, a lot of people would say, well, that's not very likely. They're not going to do that. But the reason I had them doing that is because a lot of the top offensive linemen were off the board. They may well decide it's too early for an Austin Jackson type player. And if they do, they're going to go in a different direction. Even if it isn't Antoine Winfield Jr., they may well take a completely different player. But there's many reports from Tony Pauline that they really like Ezra Cleveland. And if that is the case, if they really like Ezra Cleveland, they can either continue to trade down from 10 to 15 to somewhere else, or they can just trade up from 41, having traded down initially. They've got an extra pick there, and then they can get two players they really want, which is Ezra Cleveland as your left tackle, Antoine Winfield Jr. as your safety. So, in this spot, number 31, Ezra Cleveland, the Boise State offensive lineman. Number 32, Chiefs, Trevon Diggs, their kind of cornerback, the kind of prospect they like to take a chance on. Really talented. Didn't finish the year as strongly as he started it, but very, very talented corner. Right, on to round two then. Bengals back on the board in a good position here. They've invested in a lot of areas, but haven't done too much to improve their offensive line. Josh Jones comes off the board at number 33. Could play guard or tackle for them. Seahawks back on the clock then at 34. I am going to have them take a pick here. Now, I've talked about this on the blog. They need pass rushers. They need some people who can create some pressure. They did not have enough of that. They've not done enough. If they'd have signed Jadeveon Clowney and then brought somebody else in, an Everson Griffin, for example, a Yannick Ngakoue, and really loaded up with two quality pass rushers and maybe even got a bit of depth in there as well, like they've been doing, then there wouldn't be any real need to do this. But because they're only moved so far, Benson Mayowa and Bruce Irvin, and there's the potential of Jadeveon Clowney coming back, but who knows? If not, it's Everson Griffin. They need some younger players in there. They need to add some players. And although the value for defensive pass rushers is probably from around pick 35 to 75 or something like that, that's where they're going to go. And after that, there's not going to be any left. I'm not sure you can wait till 59 or trying to trade up from 59 to go and solve this need. It's just too big a need. And because in this situation, the running backs are gone, a lot of the receivers are gone, a lot of the offensive linemen have gone, I think it probably makes sense to say, okay, you're going to take your top pass rusher in this position. So who could that be? Well, I think the pressure percentage and the pass rush win percentage is something they're going to pay attention to. And Chase Young is obviously top in both areas. But the guy who is second is Josh Uche. And I've written about that, and they're going to look at Uche probably, who is second, Julian Okwara, who is third. Both of those players have 33-inch arms. The Seahawks have never drafted a defensive lineman with sub 33-inch arms. Doesn't mean that they won't. Doesn't mean that they might say. They could look at Caleb on Chase and say he's too talented. He's a great leader. We think he's got a bit of star potential there. Certainly, a lot of national pundits think that he's worthy of going like top 15. I don't. His pressure pass rush, his pass rush win percentage was the worst among any edge rusher in this class. 13.1% or something like that, which is much weaker than someone like Josh Uche, who's quick, can bend and straighten, attack the edge. How would he fit in for the Seahawks? He would definitely be a Sam who reduces down and becomes a pass rusher on third down. Now, it's already been somewhat revealed. I think Brady Henderson mentioned this from ESPN, that they see Bruce Irvin as that kind of Sam who reduces down this year, which is fine. But Bruce Irvin's 33 in December, and he is a one-year solution, a one-year fix here. So I actually think that they could take Josh Uche, have him play a bit of Sam, learn the ropes, learn the position a little bit, because it did take Michael Kendrick some time to learn that Sam role in this defense last year. There were some growing pains there. So you let him sort of learn the ropes in year one, and what you have him do is just basically rush the passer on third down. So you kind of like your base defense would be, let's say they sign Clowney on one end, Mayowa on the other. Bruce Irvin's going to play Sam for you instead of Kendricks because of the knee injury. And then it's third down. Maybe you push Clowney inside and you have Mayowa and Irvin, or Mayowa and Uche, or Uche and Irvin getting after it on third down. And look, you might say, well, that's not much value as a first round for a number 34 overall pick. You would want a bit more of an immediate impact there. I actually think that'd be fine. If he can create pressure and sacks on third down and get the team off the field in year one, then that's job done. And then in year two, if he becomes a more permanent feature on the defense, well, that's kind of just what happened with Frank Clark. So I think that is a plan moving forward that could make a lot of sense. So I'm going to have the Seahawks take Josh Uche here and feel pretty good about that pick. Zach Bourne to Detroit at number 35. They were in the Kyle Van Noy sweepstakes, but he ended up at Miami, the other New England Patriots outside of the AFC East. Miami in AFC East. So they've kind of got the Patriots South and the Patriots a little bit more west of East. And Zach Bourne can play that Kyle Van Noy role and would be a really good fit for Detroit. Giants, they need to provide some weapons for Daniel Jones. Hamler's still on the board. There's a little bit of he's one of those players, I think Albert Breer mentioned him. It certainly is a little bit of just the injury side of things there. Didn't work out at the combine. Very small, didn't test. There's no information there. I can just see the Giants going for like a bigger target for Daniel Jones, and T. Higgins at number 36 is the player I've got going to them there. 37, Jalen Hurts, and people will say it's very early, and yes, there are flaws with Hurts. He too often sees open receivers, doesn't throw, and takes off and runs instead. He, for all of the success he's had in college, you don't really watch him and think, wow, this is a Russell Wilson style prospect who's going to come in and take the league by storm. But I don't think there are going to be some teams who fall in love with him. The way that he handled the situation at Alabama, losing the job, getting back in the job, the success that he had there, then going to Oklahoma, having a successful season in 2019, going to the Senior Bowl, competing well there, going to the Combine where he threw better than probably any other quarterback. His throws were superb, great touch, arm strength. He just looked like he was having fun. People gravitated towards him, the other players. He's got an amazing charisma and confidence and personality about him. I think some teams are going to say, do you know what, we'll just take our chances on him. We won't take a risk on Tua. We're not going to, Justin Herbert's an introvert. Jordan Love had a bad 2019. We can't get to Joe Burrow. We'll just take a chance on Jalen Hurts. And if it doesn't work out, we're going to take him in round 2 or round 3 or whatever. It doesn't work out, we'll draft another quarterback down the line, but we'll give him a go. And I just think the Chargers, you've got Tyrod Taylor there. He can start in year one. Hurts is your guy who's competing with him, who may take the job. If not, he's there down the line anyway. I just think that to me feels like a fit. And then they build up the offensive line. They've got plenty of weapons there. You bring in Jalen Hurts as your quarterback. I think it'd be a smart move by the Chargers. Whether it works out or not, I don't think you can have a go at them. Even if it doesn't work, you say the plan made sense. On to the Panthers at 38. So I had them taking Isaiah Simmons with their first round pick. Now, I'm going to have them taking Jeremy Chin, and you might say, well, they're the same player. Why would you do that? They're going to play the same role. But actually, when I watch Chin, and people have said he's a linebacker, for me, Chin is a pure safety. I think he does his best work when he's sprinting in space. His range is really good. His ability to build speed quickly and attack the line of scrimmage from deep to blitz. I think he's better in that deeper safety role. And then you've got Simmons with his speed at linebacker, and you've got Chin on the back end. Not many teams are going to be able to do a lot with that there. And you can cover up, and you're going to get the matchups because you're playing New Orleans twice. You're going to need some of those matchups there at the second level. I think it will just make for a really exciting looking Panthers defense to have both of those guys there, and they have the luxury to make that move. So that's what I've got for the Panthers at 38. Adding Jeremy Chin to Isaiah Simmons and having all that speed, all that size, all that tenacity joining into your defense there. At number 39, Miami. They've gone 3 offensive picks to start. Time to get a defender in. Patrick Queen as a linebacker would be a good fit for Miami. Number 40, this is where the drop for Kayvon Chaisson ends because the Texans need a pass rusher. As I mentioned, his pass rush win percentage is poor. He's not done any testing. He does not have 33-inch arms. He's had injuries in his career. I think personally that's going to lead to him falling a bit. I know a lot of people are very high on Kayvon Chaisson. I'm not as much. It's not that I don't like him. I respect him. I think he's the number 18 jersey thing at LSU. I love all of the LSU guys. If the Seahawks take him, I am not going to complain about that. I just think that he's going to last a bit longer than some people think. Niners at 41. They've traded down. I think in this area, this is a good spot because he's still on the board for Raekwon Davis to come in and immediately be a plug-in there for DeForest Buckner and fill that hole there at 41. I think the Niners would feel pretty good about that. Jacksonville, number 42. I mentioned that I think Jabari Zuniga, because of his workout at the combine, he could easily go in the top 45. Good pass rush win percentage. His pressure percentage is not quite as good as some of the other prospects, which indicates some inconsistency, which you see on tape, but he can play inside out. They need some pass rush. They need to add to that defensive line, and I think Zuniga will be a good fit for Jacksonville at number 42. For the Bears at 43, their first pick, they go and get the value here. That offense can do an awful lot with KJ Hamler, who's a terrific player and could easily go a lot earlier than it. Wouldn't surprise me if he goes 20 picks higher than this. I mean, I really like KJ Hamler. This is more about the fact that he didn't test, more about the fact that there's a bit of an injury question mark there because he again didn't test at the combine. Teams will want to have check that out. So I think, and this is the same with the next guy as well, this is going to be a draft where players do just last a little bit longer because teams don't have a full injury assessment on some of these players. And as I said, that is the same with this guy. At 44 for the Colts, Julian Okwara, still recovering from a broken leg, couldn't work out at the combine. Has just run a 4.60 at a sort of a pro day that's been filmed. That is a good time for him. I've got him going at 44 though. Tampa Bay at 45, got the running back with their first pick. Come back and help Tom Brady even more with a right tackle, Prince Tagovailoa, terrific player, kind of the forgotten man in this class just because of his injuries and the fact that he couldn't do anything at the Senior Bowl, couldn't do anything at the Combine, but a really good player, and that'd be great value there for a right tackle for Tampa Bay. 46, Denver back on the board. AJ Epinesa, not a player that I'm particularly high on, not a top 50 prospect for me. Not a great edge rusher, as very good with his hands, doesn't win with speed though. I just think that he's probably best suited to a system like this. Vic Fangio's defense can probably come in and replace Derek Wolfe there. But I've got him lasting a bit longer than some others. 47, Atlanta, more pass rush for them. Yetur Gross-Matos, who is very explosive, has got a good size, good arm length. Just don't see quite enough as a speed edge rusher there. And for the Seahawks point of view, he would probably be a 5-tech more than a Leo. I can see him lasting a bit longer again than a lot of people have him going. 48 for the Jets. They need cornerbacks. They need receivers. Damon Arnett's a brilliant player. Didn't have a great combine testing session, but on tape was terrific and would be a really nice fit for the Jets at 48. 49 Steelers. There's a bit of talk amongst their local media that they're going to go running back early. They do need a running back for me. They were talking about Jonathan Taylor at this point if he was there. There's no chance that Jonathan Taylor's going to be there at 49. J.K. Dobbins is, though, very explosive player, had a terrific final couple of years at Ohio State and will be a good pick at number 49, very valuable pick there for them. 50 Chicago, guy that we spoke to in the interview not so long ago, Damian Lewis. Terrific player. They've got a hole because Kyle Long retired at guard. I think he'd be a plug-in and play guy straight away. Very, very good player. And that'd be a good pair of picks there with Chicago getting Hamler and Damian Lewis, two really good selections. For Dallas at 51, get a steal, Grant Delpit, still on the board. He goes to Dallas here at number 51, and there's a bit of talk that he's kind of in the same thing as Greedy Williams. The teams have question marks about him the same way they had about Williams. Williams lasted to about this kind of range. I really like Grant Delpit. I think he could easily go a lot higher than this. I thought on tape he was a top 15 lock, but there's no smoke without fire, and teams are clearly worried about a little bit about the character, a little bit about the missed tackles. I personally won't be as worried about that as maybe some others are. Earl Thomas isn't a great tackler either, but I've got him in this mock lasting to number 51. Rams at 52. I've got them taking Bradley and I think they need somebody off the edge, and they've lost Clay Matthews, they've lost Dante Fowler, they have added Leonard Floyd, but I think they need someone who's produced results off the edge. Now the thing about Anai is he's not going to win on speed, but his hand technique is very good, and he probably needs a bit of help. Whichever team he goes to, he's going to need a bit of help to get after it, because he's a 4'9" runner. He's not the most athletic guy. I can't think of a better place for him to go than to play next to Aaron Donald. If Aaron Donald's sucking all the attention up at the middle, his ability to get 1v1s outside, he can win with his hands, and I just think that'd be a great pick for them. And he would be really productive, I think, as a Rams pass rusher at 52. I think that'd be a nice fit for them. 53, Philadelphia could do with a linebacker. Willie Gay had an amazing combine. I think that'd be a great pick for I think Willie Gay and Justin Jefferson are two. They just scream Eagles to me. 54, Buffalo, and as much as Willie Gay would scream Eagles, I think Marlon Davison is a good fit for the Bills. I think it's the kind of player that Sean McDonough will like and will enjoy bringing him, moulding him into either a 3 technique or playing him as a 5 technique or whatever in that defense. I think he'd be a good fit for them. Next pick, I'm not a big fan of Ross Blacklock. I think that he needs to freelance to find his gaps to get into the backfield. He's not kind of a 1v1 penetrator, but some guys really like him, and there is a bit of potential there. I think in the right scheme, he could have a productive career. But short arms, sub 33-inch arms, probably not a fit for the Seahawks, but he goes here at number 55. 56, Miami. I'm going to have them continuing to build up their offensive line. I'm a huge Akeem Adeniji fan. Thought he had an amazing Senior Bowl. Very explosive at the combine as well. Could see him going a lot earlier than people are projecting. I think he's a second-round talent. Houston, they got a pass rusher with their first pick. I'm going to have them take AJ Terrell here, cornerback, at 57, building up that defense. 58, Minnesota, Xavier McKinney, the safety. He's ranked like 21 in this simulator. A lot of people think he's going to go in the first round. I've never seen that. I don't understand why he's been rated that highly. When you watch Alabama, he is used as a blitzer all the time because they're Alabama and they can afford to send a safety on a blitz all the time. You're not going to be able to afford to do that in the NFL. And he's not got the range. He's not a free safety. He runs in the 4.6s. He did it at Spark. He did it at the Combine. Yeah, he pulled up injured or had cramps or something after that. He ran that fine. If you actually watch back the 40-yard dash, there was no sign of any injury when he was running. He just kind of cramped up as he slowed down at the end. He's a 4.6 guy. And those guys, they're not going to go ahead of Jeremy Chin. They're not going to go ahead of Antoine Winfield and Grant Delpit. So I've got him lasting a little bit longer there to the Vikings, who seem to be trying to move Anthony Harris. And even if they keep him for a year, that could be a one year thing. I mean, he's going to be 30 next year, I think, his next birthday. So you draft Xavier McKinney and he could be a long-term cheaper replacement. They do like to spend a lot of picks on cornerbacks and safeties to Minnesota. Seattle on the clock here at 59, so they've got the pass rush with their first pick. I'm going to have them go offensive line here. Robert Hunt, one of the players we've interviewed, I just think he's a perfect fit for them, and whether that is at right guard, whether it's at right tackle or left guard, I think he's a perfect fit with the physicality, the way he loves to run block, his attitude, his character. Just a Seal. He could be easily be a guy that the Seahawks just have to have in this draft, and I could see him going at 59. Ravens back on the clock at 60. Give them a pass rusher. Curtis Weaver. Great pass rush win percentage of 22.9% this year. Matt Judon's on a franchise tag. Not sure he's going to be there long term. Curtis Weaver could eventually replace him. They seem to pay a lot of attention to pass rush win percentage because they drafted Jalen Ferguson a year ago. Tennessee at 61. Lost the tight end this offseason. Hunter Bryant for me is a second round pick all day long. And be great value there for the Titans at 61. Could have an immediate impact there. Ryan Tannehill will love that pick. 62 Green Bay, another guy that I really like. One of them taking Logan Wilson. Watched his tape and was blown away by how good he was. Kansas City at 63. Cam Akers, so the top 5 running backs. I think there's 5. There's like a quintet of running backs who are really, really good in this class. Cam Akers is the last of that 5. I think they will all go quickly. I think if you don't get a running back in the first 2 rounds, you're probably going to wonder about getting one later. I know a lot of people like AJ Dillon. I'm not a big fan. Zach Moss, he's got the kind of physical style that the Seahawks look for, but didn't quite have the testing at the combine. Anthony McFarland's amazing. I really like Anthony McFarland, but not really a fit in terms of his size and style for the Seahawks. Could see him go to the Jets in round 3 with their next pick. So that leaves us with the last pick in this mock draft, and it's the Seahawks. When you look at it, they're not going to take a cornerback early like this. Terrell Lewis could be an option, somebody like that. If they want to add another pass rusher, Kyle Duggar has got that alpha male style. I just don't think safety is a big enough need at this point. And they've taken Josh Uche to play linebacker. They've already got Cody Barton in there as well. They could look at all sorts of offensive linemen still. They've just taken Robert Hunt. Brian Edwards would be a great pick there. I think they will really like Brian Edwards. Just again, he's broken his leg, his foot or whatever before the combine, and there's an injury question mark there as well. But the guy I'm going to take is a guy that I've been mocking a fair bit to the Seahawks, Justin Madubuike. He's a perfect one-gapper. He does what they want, which is great run defense, good gap discipline. His pass rush win percentage is the 3rd best amongst defensive tackles. It's like 14%, which is good for a defensive tackle. But he could still do a little bit more. I mean, he had a great combine, tested very quick. There's a quickness and explosiveness to him. He's got 33-inch arms, which is something they pay attention to. I just think that he could be a guy that, late in the second round, again, he's another player. Albert Breer has said there's maybe a few injury question marks that could put some teams off, including the Seahawks. As long as they feel confident about that, late in the second round, you get a defensive tackle in there, and you sort of completing your defensive line through that. And in the Seahawks in this projection here, if we can have a look at their 3 picks, it's 2 defensive linemen / pass rusher types and an offensive lineman. Tony Pauline says they're going to focus on the lines early and often. Any mock draft that I'm going to do is going to be focused quite a lot on the D-line and the O-line. It's just whether or not, it's a skill position draft. There's, like I said, 5 really good running backs, a ton of receivers. Do they want to use the depth at receiver to their advantage and go like round 3, round 4 there and get a really good one? Do they want to take one early and get a real stud for Russell Wilson? They have signed Philip Dorsett, which to me was a real hedge there, but suggests that they are willing to not go in that direction. They've not signed any running backs yet, which maybe is an indicator of, look, they'll wait till after the draft and see what's left on the open market. In the meantime, you go and have a look at this and see if you can get one in the draft. It doesn't mean they definitely are, but if it falls to them nicely, if Jonathan Stewart's there at the start of the second round, if they trade down, if there's a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if there's a Cam Akers in position, or a DeAndre Swift, or a J.K. Dobbins, are you going to go and get one of those guys? They may well do so, and that is an option for them. And they could easily go offensive line with their first pick. Brandon Shell's on a short, cheapish deal. It gives them some security if they don't want to play a rookie. They do like to draft to develop, though. And we'll see what they do with the offensive line, because I still think they're going to add a few picks there on the offensive. This is a really good and deep offensive line class. I think it'd be remiss of the Seahawks not to tap into it a little bit. Let's recap the whole class if we can. The full results here. Just to run through it one more time. Let me know what you think of the picks. What did you disagree with? What did you like? As I said, it was always going to be a very different projection to the one that you are seeing in the mainstream media, because one, what's the point in doing the same ones that they're doing? I like to create some talking points. I've not gone out of my way to do unrealistic things here just to create those talking points. I think there's a logic to everything. When I'm trying to explain the Tua thing, even if you disagree, I think you have to say that there is some logic to it. Things like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I just think he's such a good player. He warrants to go in that kind of range. And it's about scheme fit sometimes. It's about how teams fit in. It's about teams attacking needs. And, I think overall, This is a projection that, of course, it'll be a mile wrong because everybody's are, but it at least makes some sense. But I am interested in your feedback. Let me know what you think. If you're doing these simulations yourselves and you want to post yours, let me know. Let me know how it goes. Stay tuned to Seahawks Draft Blog. We've got some great interviews on there. At the moment, we've got Robert Hunt, we've got Damian Lewis, we've got Cesar Ruiz, we've got Jim Nagy. We've got a load of content coming on. We're like less than 3 weeks away from the draft now. Stick to Seahawks Draft Blog. Join in the community there. It's a great group. You're going to enjoy the conversation whether you're a Seahawks fan or not. And I'll see you in the next video.